This is a video presentation on multiple sclerosis, or MS, by Declan Morlenstein Brown. Multiple sclerosis, or MS, is a disease that is described as an autoimmune demyelinating disease of the central nervous system, or CNS, which means that a specific cell called neurolia is mistakenly attacked. Neurolia makes up the myelin sheath, which is the layer that surrounds nerve fibers. So this image here gives a depiction of the attacked myelin sheath. This disrupts the flow of nerve signals, which leads to many problems. Globally, multiple sclerosis affects around 2.8 million people, and in Australia, the number of people affected is 33,335. The disease affects women at a higher rate than men, with a ratio of about 3:1. In Australia, the rate per 100,000 has increased from 103.7 per 100,000 in 2017 to 131.1 per 100,000 in 2021. Here, we can see in this graph that each state across Australia, the rates have been going up. The environmental risk factors for MS are smoking, vitamin D deficiency, obesity, and infections like the Epstein-Barr virus. Although smoking hasn't gone up in rates in Australia, and the Epstein-Barr virus hasn't increased either, both obesity and vitamin D deficiencies have increased, which may be the reason why the rates of multiple sclerosis have been increasing. Symptoms of MS manifest in the brain, spinal cord, and peripheral nerves. The symptoms vary from person to person, and no two people with MS have the same problems. Fatigue, depression, anxiety, sensory issues, sex issues, swallowing, and speech, meaning that people with MS often need soft foods or in some cases are fed by tube. Ataxia, which is defined as the loss of control of bodily movements or coordination. Cognition or thinking, bladder and bowel issues, heat sensitivity, vertigo and dizziness, pain, spasticity or muscle spasms, visual problems where typically there's pain in eye movement or they have double vision, tremors, and balance problems which can make it harder to walk. The central nervous system, or CNS, is the main system where MS is developed. It's defined as a functional collection of cells, tissues, and organs that regulates the body's responses to internal and external stimuli. The central nervous system is mostly comprised of two types of cells, neurons and neurolia. Here, this image depicts a neuron where a myelin sheath, which is made up of Schwann cells, which are a type of neurolia, help the neuron function in transmitting cells. The neurons use electrical energy to communicate. Action potentials, which are brief and rapid changes in electrical potential across the cell, are transmitted out of the axon and received by the dendrites. The dendrites have a structure designed to be spread out so more signals can be received to the cell. The myelin sheath protects the nerve fibers, stopping signals from leaking outside of the cell. This is important to know to understand how MS is destructive. The organs of the CNS, central nervous system, are the brain and the spinal cord. The yellow shown on the diagram here shows the central nervous system. The two main tissues of the central nervous system are grey and white matter. The white matter is mostly comprised of myelinated neurons, whilst the grey matter is mostly comprised of unmyelinated neurons. Although it is traditionally thought that only the white matter is affected by multiple sclerosis, research now shows this may not always be the case. The immune system, more specifically the adaptive immune system comprised of B and T cells, is how the body responds to pathogens. The cells bind to antigen-presenting cells and trigger a cell death. This can be mistaken, though, in what would be an autoimmune disease, where the body's own immune system targets its own cells. So here you can see this image depicts a B cell which is binding to the antigens on the pathogen, but in multiple sclerosis, instead of being a pathogen, that would be a myelin sheath, and the B cell would bind to it, triggering a cell death, which is destructive of the myelin sheath. The body's own immune system mistakes the myelin sheath as a pathogen and responds by causing a cell death. The neuron loses its important insulating layer, which leads to many issues like leaking signals, delayed signals, and lowered signal strength. With poor communication in the body from a damaged CNS, the body will have compromised responses to any stimuli, such as if neurons, which act as key communicators for motor functions, were demyelinated from multiple sclerosis, then one may have issues with spasms or tremors. As seen in this image here, you can see that the exposed fiber is able to leak out signals, and this is what causes the issues with MS.